you ever wondered why Queen Elizabeth came to live in Buckingham Palace? Or why the Crown owned so many different estates? Well, during the Victorian era, the time period that the picture of Dorian Gray was set in, Queen Victoria created and changed many royal residences that have become staples of the British monarchy.
When thinking of English royalty, the first palace that comes to most minds is the Buckingham Palace. With 775 rooms, it serves as the official London residence of the UK sovereigns and contains the offices for the current Queen. Originally, Buckingham Palace was bought by King George III in 1761 as a family home for his wife, Queen Charlotte. However, when his son George IV took the throne in the 1820s, he asked famous architect John Nash to transform it into a grand palace. In 1837, Queen Victoria moved into the palace and became the first British monarch to use it as their official London residence, making history when she was the first queen to leave from Buckingham Palace for her coronation. In addition, she shaped one of the most iconic features of Buckingham Palace, the balcony. The balcony has become famous for public appearances and celebrations, and Queen Victoria was the first one to use it to make a public appearance during the opening of the Great Exhibition in Hyde Park in 1851.
Another royal residence associated with Queen Victoria is her childhood home, Kensington Palace, which was transformed from the Nottingham Palace by William II and Mary III in 1689. Queen Victoria was born there in 1819 and was still living there when she ascended the throne in 1837. Even though she left to live in Buckingham Palace when she was officially queen, her two daughters, Beatrice and Louise, later lived there. One prominent feature of Kensington Palace is the statue of Victoria that stands at the west front, which was actually sculpted by her daughter Louise. Kensington Palace still remains a home to many British royals, and was famously the home of the Prince of Wales, Princess Diana, William, and Henry. Currently, Kensington Palace is the modern-day office to the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, otherwise known as William and Kate.
The oldest royal residence is Windsor Castle, built by William the Conqueror in 1070. Windsor Castle has been home to over 40 British sovereigns in the last 9.5 centuries, making it the most occupied of all the royal residences. Queen Victoria, however, was not particularly fond of the castle, often referring to it as a prison because the castle had no electricity at the time and was cold and drafty.
Despite her negative feelings about the castle, it was the location of Queen Victoria's honeymoon with her husband Albert, who died in Windsor Castle many years later in the Blue Room in 1861. This castle also has immortalized Queen Victoria's presence, with a statue commemorating her Golden Jubilee on Castle Hill and a marble statue in the castle's vestibule of the Queen with one of her favorite collies.
Carlton House was located in the Pall Mall district of London. Its long and complex history began in 1709 when the royal gardens were leased to the Crown by Henry Boyle, aka Lord Carlton, in 1719. Lord Carlton built an unremarkable house on the land. When he died in 1725, Richard Boyle, the Earl of Burlington and Lord Carlton's nephew, came into possession of the property. Richard already had 2 villas, so he gave the Carlton house to his mom, Countess Dowager, in 1732. However, his mom didn't want it because she already had a nice home in the Pall Mall district. She then sold it to Frederick, the Prince of Wales, who only used the Carlton house for special state receptions. In 1751, Frederick died and the house was left to his wife, Augusta, Princess Dowager of Wales. Augusta renovated the house, even buying up the neighboring home to expand it. After her death in 1772, the Carlton house remained empty until 1783, when the king granted it to his eldest son, George, Prince of Wales, as a part of his 21st birthday settlement, on the agreement that he would keep the house in good shape. Prince George then enlisted Henry Holland to convert the Carlton house into a palace.
Carlton House is one of the most prominent and unique mansions of the last 18th century. Today, you will all be receiving an in-depth, personal, virtual tour by one of the best real estate agents in the business, Haley Armstrong. The following photos are from Henry Holland's renovation, courtesy of William Henry Pine. Allow her to give you a look around.
Given that you all just saw our Zillow page, I'm going to give you a quick and abbreviated tour of the Carlton house today. Here we have the north and south fronts of the house, fitted with beautiful columns and a stone exterior. Next, moving inside, we immediately enter the Great Hall, which was described by Mr. Cowie, a reporter from the late 1700s, as an oblong hall decorated with Ionic columns of brown sienna marble, which led to an octagon. The octagonal vestibule, Mr. Cowie noted, had an open, well-admitting light from the first floor, and to its right was a graceful double staircase. This staircase, dubbed the Grand Staircase, was planed with a large oval and covered by 2 semi-domes meeting a coffered barrel in the middle and were above the state apartments. If you would follow me up the stairs, we will see the West Anteroom, a beautifully decorated room with many large paintings. Next, we see the crimson drawing room, complete with a fashionable Chinese taste. Next are the state apartments, but I understand that you guys are pressed on time, so I'll just flash the photographs. Now, if you follow me out of the living quarters and downstairs, you will see the lower vestibule, complete with marble columns and stone sculptures. Through here is the golden drawing room, my second favorite room in the house. The beautiful reds and contrasting golds do wonders to spark the imagination. As we wrap up, I can't forget to show you the conservatory. William Pine, the author of the History of the Royal Residences, stated that its form resembles that of a cathedral. And that brings us to the end of our tour. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new about the Carlton House.
Despite the minimal references to these royal residences in the picture of Dorian Gray, the Carlton House and its associated castles have had strong connections to the novel. For starters, the opulence and extravagance of the castles help paint a picture of the wealth that Dorian and Henry were living in. It gives the reader a closer look of just how high their social standings were in order to have access to places like the Carlton House. In addition, in a way, the royal residences reflect Dorian himself in the appearance versus reality theme of the novel. These royal residences are created to appear perfect, beautiful, and pristine. However, on the inside, scandals are brewing and people are fighting. This beauty hiding the ugly truth is reflected in Dorian himself, as his face remains young and attractive, even though his true soul is ugly and corrupted. The use of royal residences in the novel also helped portray the hypocrisy motif. Dorian was almost banned from a club, which his birth and status should have granted him access to. And when he entered a separate club with a friend, the Duke of Berwick left the room. This treatment, because of his bad deeds and questionable reputation, becomes very hypocritical, as in the novel, it is revealed that in the Carlton House there are many scandals as well, shown when Dorian questions, "What of the second Lord Beckenham, the companion of the Prince Regent in his wildest days, and one of the witnesses at the secret marriage with Mrs. Fitzherbert? What passions has he bequeathed? The world looked upon him as infamous." Furthermore, these events are still happening today.
Duchess Meghan and Prince Harry left the English crown, which was one of the biggest scandals of the past 25 years. The pair now live in an $18 million mansion in Los Angeles, which happens to be Tyler Perry's home, with their baby boy Archie. The two of them leaving the crown was seen as a huge scandal by the Queen. The reason for them leaving is because Harry and William had an intense falling out. Quote, "The brothers scarcely spoke, their icy formality a metaphor for a once close relationship that has all but unraveled. And Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles, too, said little to Harry and Meghan, who once symbolized the future of the royal family and whose decision to leave almost ruptured it." This scandal relates very closely to those portrayed in Dorian Gray, and one could assume, whether it's public knowledge or not, that scandals and royalty go hand in hand.